sitting next to me is Dr. Fiamma Nirenstein, who has blessed us really with another chronicle in a long journey of understanding, exposing, and engaging on a very important and underemphasized and under-recognized phenomenon. And that phenomenon is the convergence, the lethal convergence of traditional classic anti-Semitism, what has been known as anti-Zionism, and what today is more and more recognized as anti-Americanism and hatred of the West. Among others.
Yeah.
You know, this is Fiamma's written this latest book, October 7th, Anti-Semitism and the War on the West, which is the most recent one. But just in the last couple of years alone, we had Jewish Lives Matter, which is on the fraudulent platforming of human rights, which is really platforming anti-Semitism, masked as human rights. Barbarians at the Gates, which you wrote just after the war broke out, is that correct? Yeah, after the October 7th atrocities.
It's an amazing book.
An amazing book. It is an amazing book. The 10 Lies About Israel, which is just a very recent publication, and something rather extraordinary, which I hope you'll talk about in another month and a half when there'll be a major conference here on international institutions anti-Semitism, which is called Double Message, Double Standard, Institutions Abandoning the IRA Definition of Anti-Semitism. All of these extraordinarily important works are different stops on this highway of anti-Semitism, and in its new form, what we call the new genocidal anti-Semitism, which essentially calls for the extermination of the collective Jewish community known as Israel and sovereign Jews, and then by extension, the adjoining of the classical anti-Semitism. We remember that Robert Wistrich, of blessed memory, called some of the modern adaptation of anti-Semitism the Holocaust inversion, which Fiamma has called the Nazification of the Jews. So that on October 7th, in this understanding, the Jews were actually the Nazis that brought their own extermination as a expression of Orwellian insanity. And that the importance of this book is that it gets a conversation going on this fusion of the hatred of the Jews, the hatred of Israel, and the hatred of America and the West, all on the same line, without buts, without ands, without any type of excuses, but as a complete, we want to talk equal, I would call it enterprise of hatred. And it's very important to understand this. If you were to review this book, there's a extraordinary small story that Fiamma tells as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. Fiamma's own history also begins in Israel, as her dad was in the Jewish Brigade, the Brigada Yehudit here in Israel. And she says on page 41 of the book that in post-war Italy, where she grew up in Florence, in one of the most prominent families in Florence, there was a tapestry on the wall of Queen Esther, an artwork from antiquity of Queen Esther, who would bring King Ahasuerus to fall in love with her, as a symbol of heroism, of Jewish heroism, because we know that Queen Esther revealed the evil that was under the surface, and she brought it outside the surface, and she became a model of courage, moral courage, and a heroine for all peoples, not only for the Jews. And it seems it was sort of ironic in a phone call I had the other day with an American with the Heritage Foundation in Washington that was not exactly a bastion of Jewish residency or acceptance. The gentleman I spoke to is the newly appointed head of Israel Studies at Heritage. He said, you know, we have a project now, which is in concert with the new National Task Force to combat anti-Semitism. And it's called the Esther Project. The Esther Project. He did not yet read Fiamma's book, but he understood that Queen Esther of 2,500 years ago is very much a modern symbol of courage and urgency to fight this new anti-Semitism, which he, Daniel Lesh from Heritage, said is the most pressing expression of hatred of America today. That is his understanding at Heritage Foundation, one of the really the paragons of the Washington establishment, understanding that anti-Semitism that was witnessed on October the 7th and really flourished on October the 8th throughout the West is one of the greatest threats to the American society today as anti-Americanism, as the hatred of America. Now, and I'll finish in just a minute or two, and because we want to move on to our speakers. We have been reminded about what Fiamma has written about for some decades now. And we remember the Ayatollah Khomeini calling death to America and death to Israel in the same sentence. And it is that theme that has progressed in the last 45 years, unfortunately has intensified, metastasized across Western cities and exploded on October 7th. It is extraordinary that 100 American citizens, Canadian citizens, French citizens, and other European citizens of other European nations were murdered and maimed and kidnapped on October the 7th. And not a word from the United States government about this as a threat to the United States without regard to Israel and the Jews. 100 Americans maimed and murdered on October the 7th and scores kidnapped. And it was not considered an American problem. The worst action of terrorism against America since 9/11, and far worse than 1979 when 52 Americans were kidnapped and held by the Iranians for 444 days. So what Fiamma has brought us, is really the climax of these historical trends. And this is fundamentally important for us to understand the equality of moral thinking and strategic thinking between classic anti-Semitism, the new collective genocidal anti-Semitism, and the hatred of America and the West and Europe by extension. And with this I'll end, but we saw the Jew hunting in Amsterdam recently, and the problems in other American cities, and the burning of American flags and flags of other Western countries during this entire crusade against the post October 7th reality following the massacre against Israel. So this is a vitally important journal chronicle analysis of what we all face as Jews and Christians, people of the West, and people of a civilization that is under threat. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion. Fiamma, thank you again for writing. You must have brains in your fingers, because Fiamma writes so quickly and
because I get up early in the morning.
It's really incredible. So what we'll ask, we have so many friends and family here at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs that renamed and rebranded from the long-standing name of Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, reflecting our sharpened focus, of which combating anti-Semitism and anti-Westernism is a key element. We have some wonderful speakers here tonight. Ambassador Alan Baker, former ambassador to Canada and the former legal advisor to Israel's foreign ministry. Well, I'll ask for your observations, Alan, and Dr. Iddo Netanyahu, a very, very close friend of Fiamma for many, many years, who will share some thoughts in Hebrew. And Ruthie Blum, a dear friend, former advisor to the Prime Minister, and co-host of Israel Undiplomatic on this great JNS TV network. And of course, Amnon Lord, one of the great columnists and journalists, commentators in Israel. Amnon, where are you?
He's right here.
No. Right next to her. You look like Amnon. So we have that, and then we'll have a discussion. I'm not used to seeing you with a jacket. Yeah, exactly. But where the heck is your tie? That's what I want to know. But so we have Wonder, and then of course Fiamma will share some observations, and if we hopefully we'll have time, we'll have discussions and questions and so on. And thank you for your patience and putting up with me here in my initial remarks. We have a podium here if you want to come up and you want to. Oh, because of the camera. Are we live on NBC? We're live on NBC. We're live. Okay, so it wouldn't be CNN, but it would be right. It's CNBC or not as MSNBC. But clearly, so Ambassador Baker, would you share some of your observations with us about the book and related challenges?
Well, thanks. First of all, it's very nice to see you all. Can I be heard? Okay. I don't know whether it's on.
It's on.
Okay. This very thin-looking booklet. It really is something very unique. There are 35 chapters. Some of them just a page and a half, and they represent Fiamma's whole personality and experience. It's a melange of a unique collection typifying Fiamma. The facts, there are elements here, factual elements, very important factual elements about the financing, Iranian financing of American and European universities and things like that. Statistics, personal anecdotes, family stories, a huge amount of regesh, of feeling, sentiment. Literally, this little booklet, you start reading it and you can't wait to get to the next chapter because you don't know what she's going to talk about next, and that's what's very special about it. But specifically, pointing to some specific points. First of all, at the very beginning, in the introduction, Fiamma traces the anti-Semitism, the evolvement of anti-Semitism from the Jews being slaves in Egypt, which we've been reading about in the weekly Torah portion of the last month or so, battles against the Romans, the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, the pogroms, the Holocaust. In other words, it's something that's always been around, it's always been there, it's evolved into various forms, and it's still evolving, and it's not disappearing. And the truth is that the seeds of modern anti-Semitism, the war on the West, and what has become today's wokeism, they were evident in 2001 at the Durban UN Conference on Racism, which I had the quote-unquote pleasure of attending, where the NGO world awakened to realize that it could determine whatever it wanted. And you just need to read, and I recommend reading the NGO declaration there, because what's in there is exactly what we're hearing today. And Jan, you talked about Jew hunting in Amsterdam. Well, in 2001, when I was wandering around Durban, I was Jew hunted, and there were crowds of people running and looking for Jews. So it's nothing new. What happened on October the 7th, and this is a very relevant thing, was that It serves as a catalyst that generated a chemical reaction. It awakened a genie that and allowed it to come out of a bottle. It was always there. It's always been there, latently waiting to be released. But up to October the 7th, it wasn't fashionable, it wasn't kosher. Now it's above board, now it's accepted, now it's fashionable, and now it needs to be dealt with far more than it was dealt with up to now. And the problem is that anti-Semitism can't be fought, it can't be beaten in a battle, it can't be conquered. It's an ideological phenomenon. It's connected to US constitutional concepts of freedom of speech and was it First Amendment and things like that. It's difficult to monitor it, it's difficult to restrict it, and it has to be dealt with both through education but also through law. And this is where I come into the picture, because strangely enough, and this is something that we've been working on for some years, there are various international crimes. Piracy is an international crime. Hostage taking is an international crime. War crimes are international crime. Aggression is an international crime. Hijacking planes, hijacking boats. There are all sorts of international crimes that you can arrest anybody, anywhere, and bring them to trial anywhere, except anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism has never been acknowledged to be an international crime. There's hate speech, and there are individual state laws against various forms of anti-Semitism or racism and things like that. But anti-Semitism as such has never actually been acknowledged by the international community as an international crime, punishable in an international criminal court. And this is something that now that we're involved in international courts, it's something that we're trying to push, and together with Fiamma. Her important comments on the fact that the international community has become the accuser and the sympathizer and supporter rather than the defender. The UN women's organizations, feminist movements, UNICEF, children's movements, all these elements are generated and fueled by this underlying prejudice that it's now coming out. As I said, it's no longer hidden. And we've also got these sort of inane repetition by European leaders and American leaders of the two-state solution, as if oh yes, well, two-state solution, let's move on to something else because that's going to solve everything. And this also stems from an element of ignorance and an element of we want to get rid of all these issues, and they're disturbing us, and we pay lip service and get rid of it. But all this, we can't allow this to continue now, because now it's become very, very dangerous. And so I just want to say thank you to Fiamma for this wonderful collection. It's a unique, wonderful collection, and for me, it's Fiamma. It's a bit of everything.
Thank you, Alan, and Iddo. We're going to move on to you. I just wanted to recognize a couple of friends. I neglected to do that. We have so many wonderful friends and family here. First of all, the chairman of our board, Professor Arthur Edelman, is here. Arthur, thank you for joining us this evening, pulling you away from the hospital. And our former long time CEO, Mrs. Haya Herskovic, is here, who's a wonderful, dear friend, and one of the establishers of the professionalism here at the Jerusalem Center. And we agreed to let her go do other things recently, but forever part of the JCPA family, and yes, of course, and a couple of other very close friends, Dr. Harold Road, who just came in, despite his exhaustion, a fellow of the JCFA, a former senior Pentagon official for many years, a great expert on the cultures of the peoples of the Middle East, and a dear friend. Harold, thanks for stepping over, and of course another very special friend, Ambassador Mark Regev, who has been fighting the war against anti-Semitism for many years. Not only as ambassador, a very successful term as ambassador of the United Kingdom, but as the Prime Minister's spokesman and getting us out of a lot of hot water and trying to put other people into hot water and fighting this war for us. So Mark, thank you very much for being here tonight. Really deeply appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Except Alex is Alex. Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh yes, and of course Giuseppe, our Catholic friends and group who have come tonight to be with us and share Fiamma's thinking as well. Thank you, and thank you to Ova Bendor who put this whole evening together, the director of our projects and initiatives, and everyone else here tonight. So thank you. In the meantime, we're going to move on to Dr. Netanyahu.
Professor was my father.
Yeah, that's right. I knew your dad too.
How many here don't know Hebrew? Ah, okay. I suggest you go and eat something because my 13 minutes. I don't know if it'll enjoy it. Now, Fiamma told me, and she was right. She said almost everybody will speak Hebrew. I prepared it in Hebrew. It's going to be 13 minutes. You have as much time, quite a bit of time. Fiamma בספרה עוסקת בהרבה מהסוגיות שמעסיקות אותנו מאז ה7 באוקטובר. היא אינה נרתעת מלומר דברים כדורבנות, בשעה שהיא מגינה על ישראל והיהודים, כמו גם על הערכים היסודיים של המערב מזה מאות שנים. לעשותה כן, היא תוקפת ללא מורא את הצביעות, השקר והזדון של המבקשים את רעתנו. לכל דברי האלה, פיאמה נותנת דגש לאנטישמיות, כמו ששמעתם, נותנת דגש לאנטישמיות כמרכיב מרכזי בהתקפות על ישראל, מה שכמובן נכון. על הנושא הזה אני רוצה לומר כמה מילים. רוב האנטישמים שתוקפים את ישראל ואת הציונות נמנעים מלדבר בגלוי נגד היהודים. מסיבה זו קשה לא פעם לקבוע או לשכנע ציבורים לא יהודיים שהתוקף מונע בדבריו או במעשיו משנאה ליהודים, גם אם הוא עשוי להיות מונע מגורמים נוספים. מאז השואה האנטישמים המערביים למדו להסוות את שנאתם ליהודים, או לפחות לא להודות בה. משהו שרבים מהערבים, גם כשהם נמצאים במערב, לא בהכרח עושים. בהמשך אומר מדוע אני חושב שאצלם זה שונה, אבל בשלב זה התמקד בשאלה. האם זה נכון מצידנו, כאשר אנו פונים אל העולם, להדגיש את האנטישמיות כמרכיב המרכזי, לפעמים אפילו הבלעדי, בהתקפה עלינו? טוב, זו פשוט אנטישמיות, אתה שומע לא פעם מסביר, משיב לטענה שמועלת נגדנו, שהוא מיד עובר הלאה, בלי למעשה לדון במהות הטענה. זו טעות. ראשית, זה לא תמיד נכון. כלומר, לא כל התקפה על ישראל, גם אם בוטה, מונעת מאנטישמיות. די לחשוב למשל על כל אותם יהודים אנטי-ישראלים, לא חסרים כאלה. ביניהם לא מעטים שאינם מאמינים בציונות וסבורים שהקמתה של ישראל הייתה מעשה בלתי נכון ואף בלתי צודק. האם הם אנטישמים? חלקם ללא ספק נגועים באוטו-אנטישמיות, אבל לא רובם ובכל מקרה לא כולם. שאלה עומדת לפני היהודים הללו היא בראש ובראשונה, האם אפשר בכלל להתייחס ליהודים כאל עם ולא כאל קבוצה דתית, או לחילופין כאל קבוצה שהיא בעצם חסרת הומוגניות אמיתית, שאין למרכיביה אלא קשרים היסטוריים, דתיים ותרבותיים אחדים ותו לא. והתשובה שלהם היא לא. לשיטתם היהודים אינם עם. ולא ניכנס פה לשאלה הסבוכה מדוע אנחנו רואים כך. ועקב אי הכרתם בלאומיות היהודית, הם מתקשים להבין מה הייתה הזכות של אותו ציבור אנשים, בעלי רקע מגוון כל כך, שנתאספו מארצות רבות ושונות כל כך, להקים מדינה משלהם. וזה הם שותפים בדעתם לרבים מאויבינו. ובכן, היהודים הללו שמתנגדים לנו, אינם בהכרח אנטישמים.
הדבר נכון גם ביחס לגויים לא מעטים, המתנגדים לנו ולדרכנו, בין אם מהסיבות הללו או מסיבות אחרות. יתר על כן, יש ביניהם יהודים ולא יהודים כאחד, הסבורים באמת ובתמים, ולא מתוך צביעות שיש אצל אחרים, בעיקר פוליטיקאים שטוענים כמוהם, סבורים באמת ובתמים שביקורתם הקשה עלינו עשויה להציל אותנו מעצמנו אם נפעל על פיה. זאת אומרת, על פניו לפחות, הם רוצים לא את רעתם של היהודים בארץ, אלא את טובתם. בכל מקרה, כפי שציינתי, קשה לא פעם לקבוע באופן נחרץ, שלא לומר להוכיח, שהתקפה מסוימת על ישראל נובעת דווקא מאנטישמיות. אבל גם כשהדבר אפשרי, גם אז, ההתרכזות באנטישמיות כהסבר או כמענה ראשי שלנו להתקפות עלינו, יכולה להתקבל על ידי העולם כניסיון להתחמק מעימות רעיוני על תוכנן של ההתקפות, ועלולה ליצור רושם כאילו אין לנו מה להשיב עליהן בגלל חולשת טיעונינו. אני אסביר אחר כך, פיאמה.
לא הבנתי מילה אחת מכל מה שאמרת.
יפה מאוד, אני חושב שאנחנו מאוד השתפר.
רק אחד מילה.
זאת ועוד, גם בהנחה שהצלחנו להוכיח בפני הגוי שמדובר באנטישמיות, גם אז אין זה אומר שהצלחנו להביא אותו לתמוך בנו. איכשהו, תכף אני אגע בזה שאנחנו לא מסכימים, איכשהו אני יוצאים מנקודת הנחה שגוי הממוצע מזדעזע, או לפחות מוטרד מאוד, מביטויים או סממנים אנטישמיים, אלא שאת הרוב הגדול של גויים זה לא מעניין. הייתי אומר כמעט את כולם, גם אם יגידו לך אחרת. למה? פשוט כי הם אינם יהודים. בדיוק כפי שאותנו לא יעניין במיוחד, לא באמת. אם יוודע לנו מחר שאוכלוסייה גדולה של ולונים, דוברי הצרפתית בבלגיה, חדורה בשנאה פתולוגית רבת שנים ועמוקה לפלמים. ובוודאי לא זה מה שיגרום לנו לתמוך בעמדות של הפלמים בסכסוך שלהם עם הוולונים. האם מישהו מהקהל שיושב פה משתכנע בגלל לכאורה אנטיפלמיות קשה ושרשת אצל וולונים רבים לתמוך למשל בזכותם הבלעדית של הפלמים על העיר בריסל, שביום מן הימים בלגיה אולי תעמוד לפני חלוקה? ודאי שלא. כל אחד מאיתנו ירצה לשמוע טיעונים הקשורים להיסטוריה של בלגיה, של בריסל, מצבן הדמוגרפי היחסי של האוכלוסיות ועוד. אנו היהודים כמובן מזדעזעים מן האנטישמיות הקשה שמופנית כלפינו. ויש גויים, כמו דאגלס מורי, שגם הם מזדעזעים. אבל גם המזועזעים מבין הגויים לא יתייצבו לטובתנו ולא יפעלו למעננו, אם לא יחשבו שאנו צודקים במאבקנו ובעמדותינו. ואחרים במערב, אפילו יהיו משוכנעים שאנו צודקים, לא יפעלו למעננו אם לא יהיו סבורים שהתמיכה בנו משרתת אותם. הכרה באנטישמיות אולי תגרום להם להביע השתתפות בצערנו ובסבלנו, אבל לא תשיג הרבה מעבר לזה. הכלי החשוב להשגת תמיכה בנו הוא אם כן כפול, שכנוע בדבר הצדק שבעמדתנו והחדרת הבנה ויצירת תודעה מוצקה שחיזוק ישראל ותמיכה במאבקנו חיוניים למערב. ההתרכזות שלנו באנטישמיות ממסמסת את ההבנה שלנו עצמנו בדבר חשיבותו של הכלי הכפול הזה, ובכך מחלישה את השימוש בו ואת האפקטיביות של הכלי. יש המזהירים את הגויים שעליית האנטישמיות בקרבם תביא להרס חברתם, אומרים להם שהיחס שלהם ליהודים הוא כמו הכנרית במקרה הפחם, הקנרי והקולמיין, עמידה על אסון ממשמש ובא. מסיבה זו, לטובתם הם, עליהם לדאוג לכך ששנאת היהודים תיעלם מקרבם. אין ספק שלאורך ההיסטוריה היו התפרצויות אנטישמיות שלוו בטלטלות חברתיות הרסניות. אבל לצפות, שאם נאמר לגויים, לא כדאי לכם להיות אנטישמים כי זה לא טוב לכם ולסביבתכם, לצפות לזה שהם יפסיקו אז לדכא יהודים, יש סיכוי רב יותר לשכנע את הבחור להרואין, שלא יזריק לעצמו מחר בבוקר את מנת הסם היומית שלו, כי זה לא טוב לו ולסביבתו, מאשר לשכנע את האנטישמים להפסיק מחר בבוקר לשנוא יהודים ולרודפם, כי זה לא טוב להם ולסביבתם. וכאן אנו מגיעים בנושא המלחמה באנטישמיות, נושא שדובר פה רבות. מה זה אומר בכלל להילחם באנטישמיות? מלבד כמובן להיאבק, כמו שצריך, בשקריהם וטיעוניהם של אנטישמים. אפשר לנסות כמובן לחנך את האנושות להפסיק לשנוא יהודים, אבל כמו שאומרים האמריקנים, good luck with that. מעבר להצלחה בשכנוע היחידים, שהיא כמובן אפשרית, זאת אומרת הצלחה אפשרית לשכנע. אפשר אומנם לצאת מנקודת הנחה שקיים סיכוי כלשהו לשכנע אוכלוסיות שלמות, אבל גם אם ההנחה הזו היא נכונה, הדבר יקרה רק בטווח הארוך מאוד. ואני מתכוון לפרק זמן של דורות, אם לא באחרית הימים. הרי בדיוק על הדבר הזה, חינוך להבנה, רסנות וסובלנות כלפי יהודים, עמלו ועמלים ברחבי העולם גופים מגופים שונים מזה למעלה מ-150 שנה. וכבר ראינו בעבר, כמו גם היום, מהן התוצאות שהביאו כל המאמצים האלה. דרך אחרת להילחם באנטישמיות היא פשוט לדכא אותה, בחוק או באמצעות צווים. ומה זה אומר לדכא? לאסור על ביטוייה הפומביים. אינני רוצה להיכנס פה לדיון באיזו מידה איסור של הבעת שנאה כלפי קבוצות באוכלוסייה יכול לשמש לדיכוי כללי מסוכן של חופש הביטוי ולצמצום החירות האנושית. ובנוסף, יכול להוות בומרנג נגדנו ולמנוע מאיתנו להביע ביקורת לגיטימית נגד אויבינו, כפי שאכן קורה בפועל. אבל בכל מקרה, אם הממשלות לצורך דיכוי הביטויים האנטישמיים יפעילו את הכלים של המדינה, המשטרה, בתי המשפט, סנקציות כלכליות, זה אכן יביא לדיכוי התעמולה האנטישמית הגלויה, ובעקבותיו היהודים בארצות השונות יראו דעיכה של ביטויי אנטישמיות. בנוסף, בייחוד אם הממשלות גם יתעקו באופן נחרץ גילויי אלימות, כפי שעליהן לעשות, תבוא גם ירידה מבורכת במעשים אלימים נגד היהודים. כל זה יקרה, אבל זה לא ישנה את דרגת השנאה בליבות האנשים. הקריאות המושמעות היום לדיכוי האנטישמיות באמצעות פעולות ממשלתיות אינן חדשות. דיכוי כזה נעשה מזמן לזמן באירופה במשך 1000 שנה ויותר, וכמעט בכל ארץ. חוקים על גבי חוקים הוצאו על ידי מלכים, שאסרו רדיפה נגד היהודים ואפליה שלהם מצד שונאיהם. ואכן זה עזר. בזמן מה? עד שלא עזר. משכבר נוצרה האנטישמיות המשיכה לבעבע מתחת לפני השטח, עד שלבסוף התפרצה מחדש, פעמים רבות בעוצמה גדולה יותר. כשהתפרצות כזו הביאה לא פעם גם לחיסולו של המלך השנוא מגן היהודים, שנוא בגלל שנתפס כמגן היהודים, אלא אם כן התמזל מזלו של המלך להצטרף בעוד מועד לשורות האנטישמיות. אז מה בכל זאת עושים בקשר לאנטישמיות הגואה היום בארצות הגולה? פיאמה מצטטת בספרה את הרב של בית הכנסת הגדול ביותר בצרפת, משה סבג. אני מייעץ לכל הצעירים היהודיים, אומר הרב סבג, לעבור לישראל או לארץ בטוחה יותר. הכוונה שלו כנראה בטוחה יותר מצרפת. זאת אומרת, מייעץ ליהודים לעזוב, אבל לאו דווקא לישראל, ושם באותה ארץ שיבחרו לעצמם, הם מן הסתם ישבו לבטח. כאילו הרב סבג לא למד דבר. כאילו שם, בארץ הבטוחה יותר, לא תתפרץ אנטישמיות שתמרר את חייהם בבוא היום, ותסכן אותם או את צאצאיהם, כי כמו שהרצל קבע, בכל ארץ שהיהודים התיישבו בה, שם תצמח האנטישמיות. בכל ארץ. למה? כי זו מחלה חשוכת מרפא. ומדוע? זו שאלה שהעסיקה ומעסיקה חוקרים רבים מזה מאות שנים, ולא נוכל להרחיב עליה כאן. חסרת מרפא, כלומר אין יכולת לרפא אותה. וכן המחשבה שהמלחמה באנטישמיות בארצות הגולה תביס אותה, וכך ניפטר מן המחלה, היא אשליה. עוד לפני הרצל, מפסרי הציונות כמו משה הס ולאון פינסקר הבינו את זה. ואחרים הבינו את זה בעקבותיו של הרצל. אבל אותו רב ידוע בפריז, כמו בימינו, כל ראשי היהדות בגולה אינו נמנה על המבינים. אבל יש בגולה מי שמבין היטב את מצבה הפרמננטי של האנטישמיות באומות. אלה הם שונאינו מבין הערבים. מדוע הם מרשים לאנטישמיות הגלויה שלהם להתפרץ החוצה לרחובות פריז, לונדון או ניו יורק? אין זה בהכרח כי אינם מסוגלים לשלוט בעצמם, או כי אינם מבינים כל צורכם שבארצות המערב עליהם להתנהג אחרת מאשר בארצות מוצא. יש לכך סיבה עיקרית אחרת, חשובה בהרבה. אף שהם מודעים היטב לעובדה שקריאותיהם, האנטישמיות הגלויות, הביאו להם גינויים כלשהם מצד מקומיים, ולפרקים אפילו זעקות של נו 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 מצד השלטונות. הם גם יודעים שבדרך זו הם מגייסים בעלי ברית מקומיים רבים, שהתמכו במאבקם דווקא בגלל האנטישמיות שלו, והצטרפו אליהם בפועל. כי הערבים הללו מבינים היטב מהי עוצמת הכוח הפוליטי של האנטישמיות. אם נחזור שוב לימי הביניים, כבר אז ידעו מנהיגים ממולכים לנצל היטב את האנטישמיות המושרשת כדי לכבוש את לב ההמונים ולסלול באמצעותה את דרכם לשלטון או לחזק את אחיזתם בו. וכפי שאנו יודעים, היו פוליטיקאים שהבינו את זה גם מאז ימי הביניים ועד הזמנים שלנו, ביניהם אחד, אדולף היטלר. ובכן, איך להילחם בגולה באנטישמיות מלבד לחשוף את שקריה ולהילחם בהם? הצעתי שלי לקחת את כל הארגונים הרבים שהוקמו ברחבי העולם לחינוך מחדש של האוכלוסיות ולהסב אותם לכאלה שינחלקו לא את הגויים אלא את היהודים, יחדירו בהם ציונות אמיתית ויטיפו לעלייה ארצה. המטרה לרוקן את הגולה מן היהודים ולאפשר להם לחיות חיים מלאים בארץ משלהם, חיים של חירות פנימית וכבוד. כבר זמן מה, כאן זה משלך פיאמה, ממש. כבר זמן מה שפיאמה מכירה את דעותיי בנושאים האלה, אבל כן, אני מניח ומשוכנע, הביאה בחשבון שהזמינה אותי לדבר שמלבד דברי שבח שהביא לי לומר הספרה, אומר גם דברים אחרים, אחדים, שיהיו מנוגדים ולו במידה כלשהי לדעתה. אולי אפילו קיוותה לזה. כך או כך, כל הכבוד לך פיאמה, גם על זה וגם הספרה. תודה רבה.
Oh, I'm up now.
Yeah, you're up.
Okay. Okay, but I have to move all you tall people here. Okay. So first of all, I want to start, I'm going to take a different aspect of this because Alan also, he spoke about all your energy and what is important about the book. Also in the way it's a page turner, and Iddo pointed out all the important research and everything you've spoken about anti-Semitism. And what I'd like to do is first go back to, now I've known you about 20 years, if not more, but more. But it's interesting how the first time I actually interviewed you about a book, at the time it was, I think, your 20th book, and now you're up to 30, 40, I don't know. And I came to your house. You had not yet made Aliyah, but you were a reporter in Israel. And on your computer, there were several tabs open. One was the article you were about to finish for a deadline for your newspaper. The other was a draft of your blog, and another was a speech you were writing to present in Rome when you returned. And you had just published, as I said, your 20th book, and it was called Israel is Us. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that this also is just a perfect sort of a full circle to Israel is Us, this book about October 7th, because that's exactly the point that Fiamma is making and has made all these years about how Israel is the West. If Israel is flourishing, the West flourishes, and if not, it doesn't. And it was, even that title was. Now, I also would like to tell a sort of an anecdote about Fiamma. When I actually visited her in Rome, and this is the good news because Fiamma does point out all the bad news about anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias. But whenever I walk with her in Rome anywhere, people came up to her in droves, kind of in secret, whispering, I agree with you, don't tell anybody. So there are a lot more people, maybe in Europe, that feel that way, but are too intimidated to admit it outwardly. And that's true of the Jews as well. Fiamma has pointed out that the Jews in synagogues in Rome, they're trying, Jews everywhere, they want to be liberal and are liberal, which is a good thing, but not when it's suicidal liberalism. Now, what's also really important about Fiamma's book is that she talks about what the illness of wokeness that has taken over the universities and the media and everything, but she was careful not to attack Israeli media and figures. The whole point about this was that this is a general illness. Now, we do know that Israelis are affected by it, and the whole point of this book is to say that Jews and Israelis need to understand, if we don't understand the justice of our cause, nobody else will for sure. And then the beauty of it was she was talking about this paradox. Israel is filled with this paradox all the time, and October 7th brought it out like crazy, which is that mourning on the one hand, the devastation on the one hand, contrasted and conjoined with this kind of resilience, resolve, and we saw that with the soldiers. Fiamma interviewed many soldiers. Fiamma, as she does, she's all over the place. She writes an article every day. She's the kind of person writers love to hate. We don't know how you do it, Fiamma, but while writing books as well. But the point about it being, and interestingly, she brought up the song Harbo Darbo I have to say, my grandchildren are singing it all along, bopping along, a rap song that is basically saying, it doesn't say it out that exactly, but like, we're going to kill the enemy. That's it. We're going after them. And we're proud of it. And it's very encouraging that young people in Israel, and I'm not talking about the soldiers were, of course, singing it, but younger kids caught on like wildfire. And it's the kind of thing that Israelis tend to be, let's say, embarrassed about being proud of because it sounds like we're so militant. But the whole point here is that we can't afford, as we saw on October 7th, we can't afford to live in our fantasy bubble. And Fiamma really, the reason the book is so energetic, like Fiamma, I know she's always, whatever, anybody who knows her knows that, and it comes out in her writing, as Alan Baker pointed out, is that there is this spirit. This is also the conclusion. It's not just that we have to win wars, which we do, because otherwise we're dead. But it's also that we have to preserve our spirit, and it's Jewish spirit, but it's not only Jewish spirit, it's Israeli spirit. And that is probably why the world hates us. I mean, the late Robert Wistrich we mentioned, he also really said, there's a lot of envy involved in this hatred. But the point is, we have to, and Fiamma points this out, we have to preserve that spirit. And you've seen Fiamma, as you pointed out also in the book, that you witness that spirit here among the soldiers and in the public. Now, you also pointed out that in contrast, there's a lot of unrest and there's a lot of division. We see that in the protests every Saturday night. Some of which we wonder, why are they protesting now that we have a deal and their hostage deal and everything? They're still protesting, a bit louder and screaming. And it's kind of hard to, now, we do understand the hostage families, but the point is there is some kind of this rage built up that explodes all the time. But alongside that, there is great national pride. And I know that, having had a son who was in Miluim for many, many days this war, I don't know how many, 100, 200, I don't know, I lost count. And all of them said, he said, and along with all the soldiers, that when they were in Gaza, they didn't, if they weren't listening to the radio, they actually did not feel this division, societal division, they did not. And Fiamma saw that too, and people, soldiers you interviewed, Fiamma, they felt a purpose, a national purpose, not only to find the hostages, but to beat Hamas. They, you know, then they would come out of Gaza and they would be faced with our news media, such as it is, and feel very sort of, kind of killed their morale. But you did point out that they haven't killed our spirit. That even the anti-Semites haven't killed our spirit. So the question is, how do we deal with, I would say we know how to deal with wartime. How do you deal with peace or ceasefires? Because notice, as soon as the rockets stop flying and the, you know, we have a few days without sirens, and we say, okay, that there's a kind of sink, is resuming a kind of depression feeling what's going on. We don't know what's going on. But I think that you really do point out that it's not all lost. Hope is not lost for the Jewish people. Now, Iddo says they should all move to Israel, basically. But, you know, we know, all of us, okay, not those on the, okay, we only want right-wingers moving to Israel. But the point is, even if all the people we agree with move to Israel, we know that's not going to happen. How do we know it? Because all of us have family members who love Israel. Some of them don't, but let's say we have all family members who love Israel and will support Israel and everything, but they're not going to move here. And there are various reasons, and they're not going to do it in spite of the anti-Semitism. So that is not necessarily that's not a realistic solution. In any case, maybe if all the Jews came here, they could just really wipe us off the back.
Those Jews who will come here, it's more realistic than thinking you can defeat anti-Semitism.
Oh no, I didn't say you could defeat anti-Semitism. I said they'll live alongside it, perhaps. Now the other thing is about October 7th that I think is crucial, that Fiamma pointed out, because it was a very personal. She took, like everybody else, she took it totally personally, and that comes out in the writing. There is national love for our soldiers and our people, and you wouldn't necessarily know it by the noise being made around, but I think you do highlight that well. As I said, just as the Italians were coming up to you, by the way, when you are with Fiamma in Italy, she's got these sexy bodyguards who follow her everywhere. It's not bad, except of course that's because she's in danger. I think that it's not just Italians coming up to say to her, you know, we agree with you. That sentiment, it's not that it's not that you can defeat anti-Semitism, but that sentiment, I believe, is rampant in Israel as well. I think there are many Israelis who do not dare come out on the right side. And the reason they don't is because then their friends consider them fanatics, or I know that myself, but I don't care. It's just I know people who do care about that. I don't care that people think I'm a right-wing fanatic, but many other people I know do care, and they're concerned. They're concerned about writing college papers that don't say the right thing. They're concerned about and those are the people who would never sing horrible, horrible out loud in the street. But the good news is, I think, that Fiamma is keeping on writing that. It's interesting how now, one other point I'd like to make that is kind of eerie. That book you published, Israel is Us, that came out in June 2007.
Before that, there was the Progressive Anti-Semite. That was 5 years before
Right.
that.
But
Before that,
but
you
the
know,
reason
there was
I'm bringing up
the
June 2,
the
yeah,
abandonment.
That's right.
Was the other. That was 25 years ago.
no, that's right. But what's interesting is that in January 2007, Fiamma, before you wrote, the book came out in June. In January that year, Hamas took over Gaza. I did that interview with you in May. Okay, so May before, the point being that, as is the case with this book, things change so much around here and they stay the same. They change a lot and they stay the same. But one of the things that's important is this book you finished, this current book, you finished at the end of December, I believe it was around that. And see how much has happened in the last month and a half that makes this book more like a historical chronicle than up to date, because it doesn't even yet have in it all the progress that's been made, or the ceasefire in Lebanon, or what's going on with Gaza. And it's an important chronicle. It doesn't have Trump in it, exactly, it doesn't have Trump, but it's very important because when you read it, it's hard to remember what happened 2 months ago. That's what's so weird about this country now, you don't even remember what happened 2 months ago. But the Israel is Us book, it is interesting that came out. Hamas had just taken over Gaza, and already, again, it isn't just October 7th that had the as everyone's pointing out, not the only explosion of anti-Semitism, but at that time too. And you know what? I think that this is a very important book. And also coupled with your articles, since you write articles every day, you're always up to date. And it's very hard to keep up with the pace of events. So a book you wrote a month ago is already needs updating. And we're waiting anxiously for that update. Thank you.
So I'm trying to remember when did I first met Fiamma. It's also you hear me well. It was something between 20 and 25 years ago, and one episode that I remember, Fiamma used to have some kind of invitations for people that she thought it would be good that they will meet each other. And I do have Bernard Lewis, Uri Lubrani was there, and I remember an episode at least 15 years ago, maybe more. I remember that Melanie Phillips was there, and I think Eran Lerman, and there was a kind of argument at that time. It was after Londonistan, the book that Melanie put out, whether the anti-Semitism and all the activities that happened, especially in Britain, the fusion of Arab violence or Arab political presence together with anti-Semitism, whether something like this might seep or trickle towards America, towards the United States. It seemed to be just a European phenomenon, a British phenomenon, that I don't remember it. There was the cast-led operation in beginning of 2009, and already Howard Jacobson, a famous author, spoke and wrote about how it was unbearable for him to go out of his house. He described the situation as though like you're breathing the air after a fire, with all the remnants of some fire. I mean, there was complete hatred already then. It's not already then. Years ago, so the argument was such a thing can happen in the United States. My feeling was that it's already started to get there, But the people in the know said, no, that's something different. It's not, Europe is Europe, America is America. But still, in that perspective, when I look at everything that happened since October 7th, and anti-Semitism is all over the place, let's not forget that the most powerful country in the world is behind us. And the United States, with all the eruption of anti-Semitism and with the Brown University turning into a branch of Birzeit, you mentioned it. With all that, the United States, I wouldn't call it an anti-Semitic country. So the situation is still bearable, let's say. It's completely different if I try to remember my innocent youth up until my early 20s. Anti-Semitism was not an issue. It was just something that you think, you know, that there is this term. It's something that maybe it's in the cellar somewhere. It's associated with the Holocaust. 20 or 25 years after the Holocaust, it seems more distant for us, for people who grew up in Israel, than today. Today it seems closer, 80 years after, I think. I also would like, I think people mentioned Professor Robert, the late Professor Wistrich. I remember when I interviewed him in, yes, it was 15 years ago, before he passed away. Of course, one of the main issues that I spoke with him about was about one of the trends, how to educate the youth in Europe and everywhere, was to teach about the Holocaust. And already then, Wistrich noticed that, or mentioned that it's all inversion. It just, if it does anything, all this learning, all this teaching about the Holocaust, it probably gives ideas to people who didn't think about it, bad ideas. It doesn't work. For some reason, yet it's a knowledge. These are facts. The only thing that's really, that I think I pay attention to it is that with the Holocaust, is first that countries who were affiliated or supported the Nazi Germany at that time and didn't go through a denazification process, still those are countries remain kind of soft enemies of Israel, if not hard enemies. Ireland, first and foremost, the Arabs. The Arabs were allies of the Nazis, but everybody pursued them right after the end of the war. All the superpowers wanted the favors of the Arabs, and they didn't go denazification. I think Professor Jeffrey Herf noticed or mentioned that Ayatollah Khomeini used to be an avid listener to various speeches that were broadcast in Farsi from Berlin. Not to speak about all the speeches of the Mufti that were distributed and were heard all over the place in the Middle East, and the Farhud in Iraq. They didn't go denazification. And I think there are probably other countries that didn't go to my mind. And the other aspect of the Holocaust is that some of the foremost researchers in this unique area of researching the Holocaust are completely anti-Israeli, and they have a new weapon, the term of genocide. Genocide is the new term to smear Israel. And the new theories, like Professor Omer Bartov, it's sad, it's tragic, you know, when you know that his father was one of the great authors, Hebrew authors in Israel, his late father, Hanoch Bartov. And he, just lately, on the International Holocaust Day, on January 27th, he was interviewed by Der Spiegel, some little journal in Germany, yes. And there he said, yes, Israel is pursuing a genocide in Gaza. In his theory and other people or researchers, genocide starts when war starts. That's the beginning of the genocide. This is the theory. And they also don't give any uniqueness to the Holocaust. It's just another genocide. And now you can say just a chapter in learning in genocide studies in Brown or Harvard or wherever they do it. But who started? It's like today they inverted all the legal and all the terms of crimes against humanities, which great juridical scholars, Jewish juridical scholars, you can say invented with the Nuremberg trials and in the 50s. And it was, Alan Baker probably could teach us a whole course about it. And now it's being used against us. Also, the Israeli Foreign Ministry was very active, I think, Alan, right, in getting those terms of or this way of thinking into UN, how you call it, resolutions, and the UN became, you may say that this is the true homeland of the Palestinians, an exterritorial superpower.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned earlier Professor Visser. I had the luck to share a stage with him in Bar Ilan once. And I think my conclusion, and I think he supported it, I mean, was that anti-Semitism is like, maybe like uranium before you start to enrich it. You need a superpower that will adapt a strategic policy to use anti-Semitism. It's a strategic weapon. Then the fire, you start to enrich it. It's very beneficial in terms of strategy. I think when the Russians started the war in Ukraine, it's not a coincidence that it happened here. It gave them a huge benefit. The West was completely united against Russia, against Putin. When the war started, when Hamas attacked the Jews, suddenly all the unity crumbled. There anti-Semitic riots inside the Western capitals. This was a huge benefit for Putin, especially that all the headlines came over here. So I think if we didn't have Iran and the Palestinian exterritorial superpower, we won't have they push anti-Semitism as a strategy, and if that thing, I think you cannot arrest an anti-Semite on the street, but it is possible to ban anti-Semitism as ideology of the state ideology. Instead, what we got along the years of the UN is a special resolution against Israel. Zionism is racism. Although it was eradicated, it's perhaps, it had a great influence up until today. I mean, because many people studied it. It's the basic, it's the basic of isolating Israel, of getting it as an outcast, and of course I think most of the resolutions of the UN in its 80 years are dedicated to target Israel. And maybe I'll finish with another thought that I don't think that we should, surrender under anti-Semitism, but I do think I do think that the wars that we conduct contribute to it, and maybe it's a very strange question. Why Israel, ever since from day one, is constantly fighting wars? Why Germany, who committed the Holocaust? I don't know of any German soldier who had to shoot one bullet to defend the German people after 1945. And I say the legal system is very powerful. How many Jewish lawyers are there in the world? Maybe all of them, maybe half of them, and those that excel, the brilliant lawyers in the world are Jewish. How come they couldn't find the legal shield for this one little Jewish country that will make it so that not every Jewish boy who is born here in Israel will have to shoot one bullet in the next war? So Fiamma, it's a great Daniel. Thanks for the. Is this being recorded? Yes.
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to each of you that are here. First of all, I want to thank you also for, your friendship. When people say that I'm so full of energy, you have got to know that all of my energies come from you, they just come from you. And most of all, I stick to people, you know that. I mean, my friends know that I just care about them. I am after them, and I've had the great luck of having great friends, and to always want to talk to them. Here, Robert Wistrich has been recalled. Bernard Lewis has been recalled. I've been so lucky to have had those people among the closest people that I ever had. Harold knows something about it. I mean, these have been people that I just tried to get from them all of the energies that today you're so kind to notice when. Allora, I want to tell you something. I am Arbu Darbu. This is what I am. This is exactly what I think. We cannot we cannot defeat anti-Semitism, but we can defeat our enemy. This is the most important thing that I'm thinking is this last period, and it's not in the book, because you're right, Ruthie. Things happen so fast that the idea of defeating is becoming stronger and stronger in the last weeks. And I think I'm really totally convinced that anti-Semitism has been in this last year and a half an accumulate instrument to wound and to kill Israel. I'm totally sure about that. And I've tried to reconstruct, this is there in the book and in other books that I've written, the history of this building. This building has been smart, complicated, and after the Second World War, it goes through all the history of communism. It goes through the way it has been built by the Soviet Union, that has been the first to start defining Israel as a colonialist, imperialist, and racist state. It starts over there, and then Arafat, that was very clever, kept the issue and transformed that in a way to create the way that some of you have mentioned, through which the Muslim side of anti-Semitism that has become stronger and stronger has been able to join with the leftist side. You cannot think today about Muslim anti-Semitism without noticing how strong it has become in Europe through the help of the left that has introduced not only their presence in a huge way, but their customs. You know that in Paris, there are, I don't remember the exact number, but there are hundreds of thousands of families that live in families that are polygamic families. It has becoming a common issue. It is since the time of Ilan Halimi that the police did not believe that this was an anti-Semitic kidnapping. They thought it was something connected to drugs, and they searched just in the wrong direction. The direction was just Muslim anti-Semitism connected to the banlieue, where the left had its arms and its strong political weapons. I think that the instruments that have been used like a very sharp knife in this last year and a half are really very well built in whatever has been mentioned here by you, my friends. The United Nations is number one. It's certainly number one, and in this extreme corruption, where Israel is always the first to be condemned in all the commission, where Iran is leading the Commission for Human Rights, where all the money goes to the people that makes research and studies about the racism and the genocidal attitude of Israel. So the fact that the United Nations has declined so much is really connected with what anti-Semitism is in its main core. I mean, anti-Semitism has been since the time of Hitler and before the instruments to attack the society in its structure from its main core. No, Hitler has used anti-Semitism to destroy Europe. I mean, anti-Semitism has been the main weapon, the main ideological weapon that he has used to destroy Europe with the Second World War. When Hitler was already beaten and he had no more trains coming from Salonico and that had to bring the army of the Germans back because there was no more struggle to be fought. He preferred to keep bringing the Jews to the concentration camps. That's the spirit of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is an incredible weapon, and this weapon of this I'm totally convinced has been used like a weapon of war. It's a weapon of war. And where do you see this war? You see at the exhibition in Paris where Israel is not admitted to bring its exhibition of technocratic knowledge in the field of weapons or in the field of come si dice, intelligence gatherings. You see it in the theaters where the actors are not admitted, the Jewish and the Israeli actors. You see in the universities where the university do not admit anymore the presence of the Israeli scholars. You see in science, you see in economy, you see it everywhere. It's a siege. It's a siege. And this siege is all aimed against Israel. And it is not against me when I am in Italy. It is against me when I am a Jewish standing with all of her identity where she has to stand. And it is in Israel. It is Israel. It's Israel. The land of the Jewish people that is attacked. The other one are epiphenomena. It's an epiphenomena, all the rest. You know, they attack the Jewish in America as an epiphenomena of the Jewish in Israel. And it's about time that we realize that, because the only difference with the time when the Jewish were attacked and destroyed is the fact that Israel exists and we cannot be destroyed because we have an army and we also have the atomic bomb. I mean, just put it in a parenthesis, of course, but
yeah, according to foreign media, we have the atomic.
According to foreign media, yes. So, so this is my idea that we have to fight anti-Semitism strategically. We have to fight this war strategically as a part of our strategic issue. Fight the enemy. Fight the Arab world when they attack us. Fight Iran. Fight the Iranian anti-Semitism that has been the first to promote conference of denial of the Holocaust. They did not exist but as an epiphenomenon again. Iran made it a big phenomenon and spent a lot of money about that. So, I mean, we have to start considering these kind of things exactly as Trump. Now I come back because I suppose the time is it's 10 minutes for everybody, it's 10 minutes and I have used already 5 or 6. Now I want to tell you, we are at a turning point. You know, I think about today as about the time of Churchill and Roosevelt. I might be deluded afterwards, but what do I see? I see that there is a country now where the money that goes to the university, where the Jewish are persecuted. I mean, either students or professors are cut because of a decision of a strategic decision. I see that there is a country where anti-Semitism has been an exclamation of the president. He has said, there is anti-Semitism here. What are you talking about? Are you crazy? I've seen a lot of them. Do you remember that he said something like that? There are these crazy anti-Semite around. And it's again becoming something that you don't consider like this normal phenomenon that has been growing so much that in Italy, Last year we have had a growth of the 400% of the episodes, you know, and nobody said a thing about it. Now there is the president of the biggest nation and the strongest and the one that sent us a lot of weapons just last week that says, oh my God, here I see something really disturbing. There is anti-Semitism here. Are you crazy? And this is something that changes the situation. There are people searching where does the money go when there are a lot of money that the tax payer has given to the states and been flowing to organizations that either they themselves are terrorists or they help terrorists. There are plenty of things that are happening about this issue, and most of all, there are things we are talking about that can grow free now. I hear much more talking about destroying the atomic weapon there. It's part of the fight against anti-Semitism. But we have to decide that one day we will have to say this. We will have to say this, that we want to destroy the weapons of Iran because they are anti-Semite. They want to destroy the Jews. The same we have to say when we fight Hamas. We keep the war with Hamas in a dimension that has to be expanded. It has to be expanded all over the world. It has to be described. It has to be described as the war of all the wars, the war that will save the West. I mean, I've written something there, but things have changed, you know, things change every day. And we have a wider space now. I have the feeling that our country feels it very much. I have the sense, I don't know if you agree, that we are breathing in a different way in these days. But I might be wrong. I mean, in any case, this is basically what I wanted to say, that the fight against no, there is one more thing that I want to say. And it is that the thing that I mostly agree with Iddo is about our own identity. I don't give a damn about the anti-Semite, you know, I don't care. They can keep being anti-Semite. I care about ourselves. Because I will never be able, look, at the bookshop, I don't know if you have been in Italy, probably you have noticed that there is a huge bookshops by the name of Feltrinelli. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's also a press house, it's a big press house. Okay, now a friend of mine sent me a picture yesterday. There is a table where they show the books that they wanted to sell. Okay, now I will tell you which are these books. And they just said, if you buy this book, we will double the sum that you spend here to give it as a charity to Hamas. Yes, it is. This is Feltrinelli. It's Feltrinelli. It's not a place okay. So the books are two books by Ilan Pappe. One is the biggest prison in the world, and the other one is a brief history of the conflict. It's today. It is not 20 years ago. Then there is a book by Atef Abu Said, Diary of a Genocide. Then there is James Crawford, The Wall of Palestine. Then there is Edward Said, why not? You just were there. The Palestinian question. And then two Jewish authors, one by the name of Anna Foa, you will recognize the Jewish name, and one by the name of Gad Lerner. And these two books just describe our cruelty against the Palestinians. So this is what we have there. So the way we have to move is just with the laws, as Alan said, laws. There are plenty of laws that that can be used against it. There is incitement, there is apology of the war of religion, there is apology of crime, there is plenty of things, but nobody uses them. It's war. It's just a war. And this war is not about things that we don't care about. This war is against the Jewish state. And so we, as Jewish, have the duty to fight this war exactly like the soldiers do. It's just with all of the weapons that we can hold in our hands. Sorry, I was long.
No, that's all. We have a couple of minutes for questions or very brief comments.
Thank you very much, Dan. Aaron Bronstein, some of you know me. I'm a publicist. I write. I try to publish, not always successfully, but most times. And
Here you
you
are.
put your finger, Iddo and Fiamma, on all the others, put their finger on the essential element that we need to look inwardly. What are we doing? Not what they're doing. That has its place. But what are we doing in terms of ammunition in this war? And sorry to say, I had an op-ed in the Jerusalem Report, a very good magazine, on psychological warfare, and gave examples of psychological warfare, and it's not being practiced vis-a-vis the enemy. And to talk their language, and to talk their language with the Quran in hand, and to say that the Islamists are the work of the devil to destroy Islam. Are we able to get to that kind of realization that we're not at war with Islam, but we're at war with a cancer that has taken over Islam? All of these are up for discussion, and I don't know if there's really a body within the government of Israel, all its institutions in the military, etc., that deals with the tools of psychological warfare. And if I'm wrong, please let me know.
Please.
Thank you very much. And I'm Yana Greenstrom. I was sent here with the Professor Shmuel Trigano. I'm coming from France. I've been teaching there for the last 25 years. And I've been teaching in the center where converged two main anti-Semite movements, Islamic movement and Vogue movements. So, you know, when you come to Sorbonne, you see only veiled women or transgenders. So you don't have another kind of public. So speaking about the education, and now I'm talking about what Iddo had said, it is very difficult. I don't believe in education after 25 years of being a child soldier over there, because when you look at the whole French literature, school literature and university literature, you open Petit Robert, which is one of the most important dictionary with proper names, and you open the page with Jerusalem. What do you read there? Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine. Okay, so it is the dictionary that all the school boys and school girls use. I'm not talking about the history of what is called Arabic conflict or Israeli-Palestine conflict. It's the first remark, so it's impossible. I won't take a lot of time. I will go straight to what you said about the Jews that come from Israel, from the left-wing parties, that teach at the universities. I've done my master's degree and my BA here in Tel Aviv, so I know them very well. And they're very active on the French television and French media. And usually they explain that Israel does have a genocidal policy. So I don't know if they're anti-Semitic, but they're very listened and they're invited. And once I will just give you an example. There was a left-wing institute for Jewish studies that invited me to speak about why Israel is very badly perceived in this world. And I concentrated my presentation on these Jews who come from Tel Aviv University, like you were talking about Elon Papa, but Shlomo Zand is also one of the very loved and admired representatives of Israeli universities. And so I said that in France, most of the Jews were killed in the name of Allah, like 14 people since 2003. And soon they were killed in the name of these Jews who come to France and say that Israel is a genocidal country. So people were having heart attacks and they said that I have to go back to Israel, I'm Israeli, and I don't have to come to France because they prefer people like Elon Papa and Shlomo Zand and not people like us, if I can say. So the question is, how can we start the education here in order not to have these people, our people from Israel, coming to Europe and spreading this poison over there?
Questions, comments? Final comments? Yeah. Well, I think one of the unique aspects at the Jerusalem Center for Foreign Affairs is to have special experts like Fiamma, because this what the Soviets used to call active measures, political warfare, psychological warfare, what Aaron mentioned, is one of the key areas that we're focusing on here as what we hope to be the leading center for off-battlefield warfare. Israel has been notoriously weak at soft power and fighting this type of warfare because certainly because of necessities on the battlefield that occur daily, hundreds and hundreds of attempts to carry out kinetic terror attacks against Israel and scores of cities across the country that we don't hear about because they don't succeed. Thank God we prevent them. But it is clearly the war for Israel's legitimacy, for the legitimacy of the Jews to have who have come back after 2,000 years to their 3,600-year-old birthright, the land of Israel, and to forge a common consensus-driven understanding about our own national identity is really the charge of the hour. So I think everything begins here at home, and here at home is in Israel and around the world. Professor Dan Elazar, here on the wall, who began this glorious institute over 50 years ago, had this idea of Jewish political studies, in which the capital of the Jewish people, of course, is Jerusalem, and Israel and Jews live in a federal system around the world. So in order to strengthen that federal system, we've really got to strengthen the central core of our, what we call rights-based diplomacy, of our historical right to be here and to be united in expressing that history, that right that should go forth from Jerusalem. And Fiamma, you've done such a wonderful job in raising that collective voice as one individual. Your voice is as strong as the 10 million or the 8 million Jews who live here, the 10 million Israelis who live here. And we invite all of you. First of all, I'd like to thank Ambassador Alan Baker, Dr. Iddo Netanyahu, Ruthie, Blum, Amnon, Lord, and all of you for coming and participating. I think it's a very, very important event. I would strongly advise reading Fiamma's book and receiving our daily alert. A lot of these publications are in the daily alert, and signing up for the following our podcasts on YouTube. We talk a lot about these issues that we've discussed tonight, with pathways for solutions as well, not only raising the challenges that we all face. So God willing, we should be victorious and stay healthy, and please stay close and join us. We have many of these events coming up. Thank you all so very much.